And since white is preparing to play f5 to create a breakthrough, it's better for black to bring back this queen to e7. This is because suppose if white continues according to his plan, he goes for f5. Now that will be a mistake. This is because now after takes, queen to e3 check, and after king moves to h1, queen takes d3, and white has to lose his bishop. As well as in the next move, black can bring this queen to h3, taking advantage of this pinned pawn. And yeah, that will be better. But so in the actual game after f4, here Arjun made a mistake by playing c5. This is a mistake because now Carlsen finds the best move e5, advancing these pawns as well as attacking this queen. And after that, here Carlsen goes for g4. Maybe he can bring this queen to d3 so that he can attack these weak pawns, and he can also bring this rook to f2 and then g2, supporting these pawns. And maybe this knight can jump to g3, and yeah, with all of this, you can see that white will be in a very strong position. And the best counter of this move is queen to h4, because by pushing these pawns, you can see that white also weakens his king safety, and black can take advantage of this by attacking this g4 pawn. But and to defend this, white might bring this knight to g3 so that he can protect this g4 pawn by his queen. Now they can exchange the pawn on d4, and after takes, and then he can reroute his knight to c7, and after that he can play knight to e8. He can exchange this active knight of white, and yeah, that's all. But in the actual game after g4, here Arjun goes for f5, a big mistake by Arjun. Okay, so because now Carlsen can exchange this pawn on f5, which he actually did in this game. And after Carlsen recaptured this, but some of you might be thinking that why only with the e pawn, not with the why only with the g pawn, not with this e pawn. Suppose if e takes f5, since this e pawn is guarding this d5 pawn, but after capturing on the f5, now white can play d takes c5, simply b takes c5, and after that queen takes d5 check, and at the end white will be a pawn up. Okay, so in the actual game after g takes f5, king to h1, a good move, getting out from any further threats. And now white has an option to create this battery, but instead he decides to bring his knight to g3, preparing for knight to h5, so that he can attack this bishop. And now black must consider bringing this rook to g8 so that he can take control over this important g file. And maybe he wants to attack these weak pawns, but here Carlsen goes for rook to g1, and again black has option to go for rook to g8, but instead he made a mistake by playing queen to g6, and now so white has to just find this move g4. This is because suppose if takes, simply rook takes g4, attacking this queen, and after queen to f7, and at the end you can see that white is completely taken over this g file, and white is better. Okay, so after queen to g6, here Carlsen gives a check from e7 square, and after that simply king to g8, and since this knight is under attack, here Carlsen brings it back to h4. And again, white can consider this move g4, but Carlsen missed this and he placed his rook to g2. A good move by Carlsen, deflecting this e-pawn so that he can create a passer. And now white can capture this pawn on d5, but Carlsen decides to bring his rook to e2 so that he can support this e-pawn. And now black must consider king to g8 so that he can try to stop this pawn from promotion, but here he made a mistake by king to h6, giving a chance to Carlsen in the endgame, which he didn't miss. So firstly he captured on d5 and preparing for this pawn push, and yeah, Arjun decides to stop this by rook to so it's better for Arjun to go for rook to e8 so that he can stop this pawn, but he decides to go for rook to d8, attacking this knight. And after that, the final move by Carlsen is e6, and in this position Arjun Erigaisi resigned. This is because suppose if game continues like bishop to f8, trying to stop this pawn, but simply e7, attacking this and this. So to stop this promotion, he has to take this, and after knight takes e7, in this yes, you can see this position will be completely winning for white. Okay, so now let's move on to our next game, which is played between Magnus Carlsen and a legendary player Hans Niemann. So this game starts with and it's better for black to just develop this bishop to g7, but instead Carlsen decides to take on f3, and definitely he might be trolling Niemann, as we all know they are very good friends. And now Niemann recaptures with the queen, which is obvious. And now Niemann made a mistake by playing knight to e4. Yes, he was targeting this c5 pawn, but now white can capture on e5 first by bishop takes e5. And after bishop takes e5, simply queen takes e5. And now white cannot capture this pawn because this queen is defending this. So after this move knight to e4, here Carlsen decides to go for b6. Maybe he wants to castle alongside, but in this position, here Hans Niemann sacrificed his knight by knight to f6 check. And here you cannot capture this knight either with the pawn or with the bishop. Let's suppose if black captured with the e pawn, then that will be a huge blunder. This is because after takes, now no need to explain this, that this is completely winning for white because this is targeting this and this pawn is targeting this bishop. And suppose after this move, which is knight to f6 check, if bishop takes f6, then that is also losing because again you can see white is creating this discover attack to this queen. And after this queen moves to suppose on d7, simply f takes e7, and obviously black cannot capture this with the queen due to the threat of queen takes c6. So that's why simply king takes e7, and after that white can continue his attack by bishop to e5, attacking this rook, and you can see this is completely winning for white. Okay, so after knight to f6 check, so that's why after seeing this all complications, here Carlsen slides his king to f8, which is the best move. And now Carlsen can bring this rook to d5 so that he can create more pressure over this e5 pawn. So this d5 so that he can create more pressure towards this pawn. But again, white can, okay, so our rook to d5, but simply knight to f6 check. With the same idea which I mentioned earlier, of simply that if takes this, then this discover attack towards this, and the same as of this move. So that's why, suppose if king to f8, because we all know that we cannot capture either with this or this. So after that, knight takes d5, and this is completely winning for white. So that's why after rook to d5, so here it's better for black to go for rook to d4, and now white cannot place his knight to f6 because that's completely losing after e takes f6, and if e takes f6, black is creating a discover attack again, but now we have our rook on this file, and we can simply capture this bishop, and that's winning. Okay, so after rook to d5, but here white cannot capture this rook on d5 by knight takes d5. That's because of after bishop takes d5, which is attacking this queen, and after this queen moves to g3, simply g takes f4. And after queen takes f4, and you all know, and you all can see that black has these strong bishops which is aiming forward this king side, and this position is completely winning for black. So that is why after g5, here firstly Niemann decides to bring this bishop to g3, and now you might be shocked that in this position black can actually sacrifice his rook by rook takes e5. But why? I mean, what's the point? Can't white just easily capture this rook by his bishop? But if this happens, then simply bishop takes e5, and you can see that now no one can protect this knight. So that's why this is winning for black. So in the actual game, after bishop to g3, here Carlsen missed this move and he goes for g takes f4, attacking this bishop, and simply bishop takes h4. And since this knight is under attack, so it's better to place this knight to e4. But he made a mistake by playing bishop to e5, and that's a mistake because of the following moves which is played in this game. And now white must consider attacking this queen, but instead he blunders by knight to e4. And now to win this game, black has to just find this move, queen to a1 check. This is because after king to h2, rook to g8, attacking this queen, and obviously this queen cannot move anywhere because it is guarding this rook, so he has to place this queen to f4. And after that, rook to g4, attacking this queen again, and clearly you can see that this is completely winning for black. Okay, so after knight to e4, here Carlsen firstly go for rook to g8, attacking this queen, and now it's better for white to shut this diagonal by playing c3 so that this queen cannot go to this a1 square. But he blunders by going to f4. This is because the final move by Carlsen is rook to g4, and in this position Hans resigned because simply queen to f3. Suppose if game continues like this, queen to a1 check, king to h2, rook to h4 check, queen to h3, queen takes e5 check, knight to g3, and finally bishop takes h3. And yeah, that's all. Like this video and also make sure to subscribe to this channel. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.